Hello, everybody. We're just waiting for people to join. We'll start our webinar very shortly. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and start. And as we slowly get through the introduction part, I'm sure other people will join us as well. Okay, so today we're talking about the end of transitional measures. So this is farewell transitional measures. And you're very welcome from wherever you may be joining us. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hopefully you will find this quick half-an-hour webinar useful for you. And I suppose it's just really, our way of giving people a heads up that something is happening, something is going to end very soon, and you need to make sure that you're on the right side of the line when it's drawn, so that your products can remain on the market. So we are Corona Scientific. You'll be familiar with us by now, I think. We offer regulatory support in biocides, plant protection products, plant biostimulants, microbials, fertilizers, and REACH, and other regulations in the EU. We currently have offices in Ireland, Spain, and the UK. And we have our vademecums that we publish. So we have our BPR vademecum, our fertilizers vademecum, and our CLP desktop companion. So those are all available to buy via our website. So please go to our website and have a look if those would be of interest to you. Some of them can be very useful, particularly when you're trying to watch the deadlines that we're going to be discussing today. We also offer training webinars in plant protection product topics, as well as biocide topics and fertilizer topics throughout the year. And I have some information on that in the final slides of today's presentation. We offer on-site training and workshops, and we currently have our Corona Plant Protection Products Academy, our Corona Academy, which is a very detailed training that's over the course of a whole year. And it goes through the details of each section of the plant protection products dossier and how to prepare it and how to deal with various points in each section. So if any of you are working in plant protection products as well, that might be of interest to you. Again, please visit our website and to be able to see all of the services that we offer. We also have our virtual industry symposiums. So we have the next one coming up is actually our Dublin Fertilizer Symposium, and that's in September. We also have our Dublin Plant Protection Symposium in November. And for most of you that are on today's webinar, the one that would be of most importance would be our Dublin Biocide Symposium, which takes place in March of each year. And the dates for the upcoming one in 2025 are the 26th and 27th of March. So we always have some very interesting topics and speakers on those symposiums, and we would be very happy to see some of you on those symposiums as well. So I'm Catherine Al-Haddad. I have over 15 years of experience in the regulation of biocide, plant protection products, and other chemicals in the EU. My main degree is in chemistry, and my master's is in analytical toxicology. At Corona Scientific, I look after the Phys Chem and analytical chemistry sections, as well as toxicology, human health, and exposure assessments as well. So I've included my email address there. I know that today it's going to be a very brief and short webinar, so hopefully I will manage to get through it in the half an hour, because I do tend to talk a lot and explain a lot. And normally my webinars are an hour long, so I'm going to try my best to get it done within the time today. So, and on that vein, my email address is there. If we don't have the opportunity to take many questions at the end of today's webinar, please contact me through my email address, and I'll have a look at what you need and we'll see what we can do to help. Okay. So, launching into today's topic. So today we're talking about transitional measures. We need to take a little step back and remember what the context of what we're talking about is. So we're talking about the Biocidal Products Regulation, the BPR. So this is regulation number 528 from 2012 concerning the making available on the market and the use of biocidal products. This regulation entered into force in September 2013. And at the time, it was replacing the Biocidal Products Directive, the 98/8 EC, because of the problems that that directive had shown, and therefore the regulation was brought in to replace this directive. Also, regulations have a binding legal force throughout every member state, and they all enter into force on a set date in all member states. So it is more legally binding than the directive, and all member states have to follow it. So the consolidated version currently is from the 15th of April, 2022, and the last amendment was by Regulation 525 from 2021. Now, in the biocidal products regulation, and even at the time of the directive, the biocidal products were divided into different biocidal product types. So biocidal products are basically products that contain active substances that are presented in a suitable formulation type so that they are suitable or fit for use. So for example, they could be in a liquid, gel, or granular formulation, depending on how you need to use them. And of course, they are present in the biocidal products with coformulants such as water, organic solvents, stabilizers, and other coformulants in order to make the formulation, the biocidal product, fit for use and fit to deliver the active substance to the target in the way that we needed to get there. Now, the biocidal products were divided into biocidal product types based on what they are controlling or what their mechanism of action is. So common biocidal products are preservative, disinfectants, and pest control products. The first group of product types, the group one, is the group of disinfectants. And this is from PT1 to PT5. So you can see here we have PT1 as human hygiene. So those would be actually applied directly to human skin. And then you have PT2 would be disinfectants that are not applied directly to humans or animals. PT3 is for veterinary. PT4 is for food contact materials that are disinfectants, and then PT5 is for disinfecting drinking water. So you can see this is the first group of biocidal products, and it is PT1 or product type 1 to product type 5. The next group is the preservatives group. So this is from PT6 to PT13. I'm not going to go through them all in detail because the main point of this webinar is to talk about transitional measures and the end of transitional measures. But I just want to make sure that we all know the context and the background and where we are coming from so that when I say PT or product types further down in the webinar, people understand what I mean. So group 2 is the preservatives, and that's from PT6 to PT13. We then have group 3, which is the pest control. So that starts with PT14 rodenticides and goes all the way down to PT20, and it would include the PT18 and PT19, which is our insecticides and our repellents. And then finally, we have group 4, which is the anti-fouling products, PT21, and the embalming and taxidermist fluid, PT22. So these didn't really fit into any of the other 3 main groups, and therefore they were put into a sort of other group at the end. So just to have to talk about active substances and to define the types of active substances that are involved in transitional measures. So active substances, of course, would be the substance or the material that is actually exerting the biocidal effect inside your product. And in order to include any active substance in a biocidal product and to be able to put that product on the market, that active substance first has to be approved. Now, active substances are approved at the European level. So they're evaluated by one member state competent authority. So it's agreed upon which member state is going to carry out the evaluation. And they evaluate it on behalf of the rest of the EU. And then it's approved at an EU level. And for biocides, active substances are always approved in relation to one or more product type. So for example, you might have a disinfectant active substance. It might be approved just for use in product type PT1. or it might be actually examined and approved for PT1, 2, and 4, or PT2 and 4. So active substances are not approved completely across the board. So this is where it's a little bit different to plant protection products. The active substance can be approved for one or more product type, but not actually approved or even still under review for other product types. The most important definition that we need to consider when thinking about transitional measures is the new active substance versus the existing active substance. So when the directive came into force, so the 98/8 EC directive, the biocidal products directive, when it came into force, there were already some products on the market. So there was the need to set a date, a cutoff date, a magical date, where anything that was on the market before that date was going to be considered what we call an existing active substance, and then anything that was put on the market after that date and wasn't there before would be considered a new active substance and would go through the normal evaluation. And this was to allow for evaluating products and active substances that were already on the market retrospectively without taking them off the market and interrupting supply or use. So new active substance is a substance that was not on the market on the 14th of May 2000 as an active substance of a biocidal product, okay? So these are substances that on that magical date were not being used as biocidal active substances in biocidal products that were registered or already placed on the market in any of the countries in the EU. Now, applications for the approval of those active substances are always going to be triggered by the industry. So, and the industry might come up with a new active substance that is, let's say an insecticide. Them wanting to develop this active substance and wanting to develop products containing this active substance will be the trigger for this active substance to be evaluated. And it will be evaluated on request by the member state that is going to be selected by the industry or agreed by the industry. In contrast, the existing active substances are the substances that we care about today in our webinar, and they're the substances that were already on the market on the 14th of May 2000 as active substances inside biocidal product for the purpose other than scientific or research and development. So they were actually being marketed as biocidal products at the time. They weren't under research, okay? So those are the existing active substances. They were all listed and collected, and then they are being evaluated via the review program. So basically that means that the products that those active substances are contained within were allowed to continue to be marketed while we are waiting for those active substances to be evaluated and approved. That happens via the review program. So what is the review program? So existing active substances are all being systematically reviewed through the review program, which we will be referring to as RP. I'll say it as a review program, but it's just that we're using certain abbreviations within this webinar. So we have Regulation 1062 from 2014, and this was actually the regulation that showed the work program for the systematic examination of all the existing active substances that were contained in biocidal products and referred to in the BPR. There were 6 priority lists that were listed in this review program, and existing active substances that were supported in the review program can continue to be marketed in the EU until the evaluation is complete, marketed under what we call transitional measures. So those transitional measures are the measures that apply in the interim. So while you're waiting for that active substance, that existing active substance to be evaluated and approved, you can continue to market your product that contains that active substance under transitional measures, which means that it's going to be under the national rules in the various member states. So it's all governed at member state level during transitional measures. Now, it was intended that this review program would be completed by 2024, but of course, things happened. COVID happened, Brexit happened. There was always a shortage of resources, and the review program was always actually moving very slowly, and there was always a lot of difficulty. Also, because you have so many, because the evaluation is taking place based on an active substance product type combination, that means that each active substance is potentially evaluated several different times for whatever product type combination it's being evaluated for that particular approval. So that means that it's doubling and tripling and exponentially increasing the work that is going to be done, and therefore this all contributed to slowing down the review program and actually causing it to exceed its deadline or to not be able to meet the deadline. So these were the original priority lists. So you can see that certain product types were prioritized over others, and those would be the product types that were either used a lot or that tended to be a little bit more hazardous and needed to be controlled faster. So you can see you have PT8, which is one of the preservatives, PT14, 16, 18, 19, and 20. So that includes rodenticides, insecticides, repellents. So those are all generally in group 3, and then you have PT21, which was from group 4, and so on. So you have the first priority list. Basically, those were basically the lists that they were put into and the deadlines that were set for that there. But of course, all great plans, and it doesn't always work out the way you want. So the original deadline was the 31st of December 2024, and obviously that's the end of this year, and it was not going to be met. So the deadline has now been extended until the 31st of December 2030. So we've given ourselves another 6 years, okay? And of course, on the legal side and on the official side, there is an action plan that's been put in place for progression. Member states have been urged to allocate sufficient resources to ensure the review program is completed within this now new deadline. They've been told to, there's plans to conclude the backlog of assessment reports by 2025. The examination of endocrine disruptor criteria has also come into play, and there is, the action plan to get this to progress more and more quickly, because again, it was another cause for delays and the slowing down of the review program. And then other actions as well. Member states have been encouraged to prioritize review program applications over renewal applications. So, extend the already existing authorizations and extend their renewal, delay that, and actually get your review program substances done first. Also, the duration of approval has been extended upon member state request, and strict timelines are implemented for data requests and application completeness. So that in that way, a lot of the actives or the products can fall out if they haven't been supported by complete submissions, and that allows for less wasting of time waiting for applicants to submit requested data, or if applicants are submitting incomplete dossiers or incomplete applications. So transitional measures, they concern the authorization of the biocidal product that has an active substance that is in the review program and has not yet been included on the union list of approved active substances or on Annex 1 of the BPR, and the authorization of the biocidal product was not covered within the scope of the previous Biocidal Products Directive. Now, Article 89 in the BPR is the article that looks after transitional measures and defines it and gives the details on it. So according to that article, the member states can continue to apply their current system or practice of a given biocidal product until the date of approval of the last active substance to be approved in that biocidal product. And you need to remember that the active substance is approved in relation to product type. So what that means is that if you have a biocidal product on the market at the moment and you have it under transitional measures, the member state is allowed to continue to authorize that product under transitional measures until the very last active substance contained within that product is approved. Once that is approved, then you should have by then submitted your full authorization dossier for your biocidal product in order to get it fully authorized and take it out of transitional measures. Now, what that means is if you have several active substances in your biocidal product, it's the very last one, the one who's going to come out of transition measures last, that you need to keep watching. And a lot of companies do actually use this. So they would have had a product, let's say, that was based on a specific active substance. and that active substance now was nearing its approval. So what they would do in order to kick the can down the road or to postpone the need for a full authorization dossier and all the costs that come with that, they would add a second active substance that is also in the review program, whose date for authorization is later or who is still behind in the review program. So we know that it's not actually coming up towards its approval. And some companies have continued to add on more and more active substances and keep their product on the market. Of course, new notifications and will be needed, and new fees will be needed for those products, but they are generally much lower than the fees that you would need for a full product authorization dossier, and they don't need the data that you would need for a full product authorization dossier. Now, you need to remember that the active substance is approved in relation to the in relation to product type. That means that an active substance might be approved, for example, for PT2 and 4, but it's still under review for, let's say, PT11 and 12. And those are random PTs that I've chosen. So there may not be any active substances that combine all of those PTs. But let's say it's approved for PT2 and 4, then that means that any products you have that are disinfectants would need to have their full product authorization dossier, and you would need to need to have their full approval. They can't go under transitional measures anymore. But if you're using that same active substance as a PT 11 or 12, if it's still in the review program, you can continue to market that under transitional measures. Okay. So when an active substance is approved for a specific product type, the member state has to ensure that the authorizations for the biocidal product of that active substance product type are granted, modified, or cancelled as appropriate within 3 years of the date of approval. Now be careful, this is a deadline for the member state, not a deadline for the applicant. Basically, what it means is that let's say that you are marketing a particular product under transitional measures in Ireland, okay? Once the active substance in your product or the last active substance in your product has been approved for that active substance product type combination, Ireland has 3 years to realise this and to tidy up its market for that particular active substance product type. And they will need to contact you if you haven't already submitted a full product authorization dossier, then they will be contacting you telling you that your product has now been revoked and telling you what your grace periods are. This 3 years is a deadline for the member states to act. They could act on the very first day of those 3 years, and you will have to adhere to what they say. So this deadline of 3 years is not for the applicant, and you should assume that member states are going to be very quickly cleaning up their market and very quickly contacting all applicants that they find have not sent in their full product authorization dossier in order to get those transitional measures authorizations cancelled immediately. Now, the applicant that's seeking authorization or mutual recognition, so you as the applicant, need to submit your applications no later than the date of approval of the active substance product type combination. And you will have plenty of warning. You need to look out on ECHA and follow the progression of your active substance. You'll be able to see when it's going to be approved. A date eventually will appear. And in the meantime, you need to be getting your dossier ready so that you are able to submit your dossier by the date of that active substance product type approval. Because if you don't submit by that date, then you will lose whatever notifications you have and your products will be taken off the market. Whereas if you do submit by that date, then you will be allowed to continue to market your product while your full authorization dossier is being evaluated. Okay? For biocidal products that contain more than one active substance, the applications must be submitted no later than the date of approval of that last active substance product type combination. So basically, your deadline is that date. I would even say your deadline is approximately a month before that date, because things can go wrong and, websites can shut down. I would not be leaving it until that date. I would be doing it at least a month in advance, pressing send, submitting through 04BP at least a month in advance, okay? There is a decision now. Of course, all of what we're talking about is assuming that there's a decision that the active substance is going to be approved. But some active substances now, during the evaluation of the review program, are actually being rejected. So if the decision is not to approve the active substance, then the member state is allowed to continue to apply its current system of making that biocidal product available on the market for up to 12 months after the date of the decision, and continue to apply its current system of using up the biocidal product for 18 months after that decision. So those are the grace periods in case that the active substance in your biocidal product is no longer approved. So if it's not approved, then the member state can give you 12 months to continue to market. That's the first grace period, and then the second grace period of up to 18 months for it all to be used up. On the other side, if no application for authorization or mutual recognition in parallel is submitted, or if the application is submitted but it's insufficient and it's rejected, then there are different grace periods that apply. Your biocidal product shall no longer be made available on the market with effect from 180 days after the date of the approval of the active substance. And you have then 365 days to use the existing stocks of your biocidal product. And these 365 days are from the date of approval of the active substance. So if you have a product and the active substance for it has been approved today, and you haven't applied for the approval of your product, then now your transitional measures is rejected. And you will have from today 180 days, so 6 months, to continue to make your product available on the market. And then from today, you have exactly a year for all of the existing stocks to be used up. So those are the grace periods for finishing up your product. So transitional measures are regulated at a member state level. Each member state has its own requirements, and the same active substance, different product type might have different procedures within the same member state. So you always need to watch out for these things. You need to check your requirements. I have included the link there so that you can go in and have a look at the requirements for transitional measures at a national level. And I've just put in 2 examples to show you the differences between the member states. So our examples are Italy and Germany. So Italy, for example, doesn't require notification, whereas Germany does. Italy does require authorization for certain product types. So you might have an active substance that is a PT4. You will need to authorize it for the PT4. But if that product type is also used for PT6, PT6 is not one of those PTs that's listed for Italy, so you won't need to authorize it for PT6. So you need to have a look at each member state's requirements and follow them exactly. For Germany, authorization is not required. And then we've included the legal background, so you can see it's very much on a member state level. They are referring back to transitional measures in the BPR, but they also have their own decrees or laws that they are implementing for transitional measures. And then, of course, some member states charge fees, other member states don't charge fees. Some member states, the fees are quite high, others, the fees are very, very minimal. So again, on a member state level and member state by member state. So going back to the review program, so the idea was that we need to slowly now end transitional measures. And just to give you an idea of how far we are, as of December 2023, 47% of the review program is completed. So let's say nearly half, okay? There are 300 active substance product type combinations that are finalized and 358 combinations ongoing, but that's on the date that this survey was taken. So that might be slightly different now, slightly. So it's taken us 23 years since the beginning of the BPD of 98.8 until now, until 2023, end of 2023, to get through, let's say, half of the review program. And now we're hoping that in 6 years, we'll get through the other half between 2024 and 2030. So now the work program must be completed between 2024 and 2030. There's a lot of active substances that are going to be approved in a very short space of time. So you need to keep an eye on the progress of your active substance, and a full BPR authorization dossier is required when the active substance that is in your biocidal product is approved at EU level. Our advice would be, first of all, now, straight away, avail of transitional measures while they are still available if you have an active substance or a biocidal product that contains an active substance that is under transitional measures. Get in there with your notifications right now and avail of the transitional measures while they're still available, because you'll be able to get some sales in and hopefully get enough to put your dossier together and to get it ready for full authorization. So avail of transitional measures while they're still available. They're going to run out very quickly. So then we get asked the question, can I put my product on the market? So if your active substance product type combination is approved, then it's regulated under the BPR, and a full biocidal product authorization dossier, the whole lot, is required. If your active substance product type combination is in the review program, then it falls under transitional measures and national rules apply. So get it in as quickly as possible. If your active substance product type combination is new and it's being evaluated by an evaluating competent authority, so it's under review, but it's a new active substance, not an existing active substance that's under the review program, then it is regulated under the BPR and a full biocidal product authorization is required. So you will have to wait until the active substance product type is approved before you can market your product. And finally, if your active substance product type combination is neither approved nor being evaluated, then simply your product cannot be put on the market. Okay, so that's the way it works. There are several routes of authorizing your biocidal product. We're just going to go through them very briefly. You can go for national authorization. So this is where the competent authority of a member state authorizes your biocidal product in its own territory or a part of its territory. And we're talking about applying a full product dossier here at this stage. You could also get your product authorized by a mutual recognition, and this can happen either in parallel or in sequence. And this means that you are getting your product authorized in a second member state based on the authorization in a reference member state. For mutual recognition in parallel, you're applying in both your reference member state, your main member state, and your mutual recognition member state at the same time. So you apply at the same time as you're applying for your initial national authorization, and when the authorization is still ongoing and the evaluations are happening sort of in parallel, and it will be very quick. Whereas if you apply for mutual recognition in sequence, then you have to wait until your first authorization is granted in that first member state, and then you apply to the next member state using mutual recognition in sequence. Now, another route is union authorization. So for union authorization, this actually allows access to the entire EU market through a single authorization. Sounds too good to be true? It's very expensive. That's the first point, okay? And this is only for biocidal products with similar conditions of use across the whole union, so across all of the EU. It also doesn't apply for all the product types. So there are some product types that have been excluded from this, and there are other criteria that need to be met. So, but just generally, this is the idea is that you would have a union authorization, so you would be allowed to market in all of the EU. And then the fourth way is the simplified authorization. So this was put in place to encourage the use of products that have a more favorable environmental or human or animal health profile. So they're a little bit gentler, maybe a little bit less hazard or so on. And it is appropriate to provide the simplified authorization procedures for those types of products. Now, again, there are very strict criteria that those products have to meet. The active substance has to be listed on Annex 1 of the BPR, and also you shouldn't have any substances of concern or any hazardous classifications for your product. So again, you need to check the criteria very closely before going down this route. Of course, if you can also have a same biocidal product authorization, which means that there's a product on the market, maybe marketed by someone else, and you want to clone it. or you've agreed with them to clone it. So you can apply for a same biocidal product for your own brand or your own trademark for it in that same country. And there is also biocidal product families. So again, this is sort of when there's a family of biocidal products, they are similar with certain, tolerated changes. And so sometimes you can apply for a single product or you can apply for a biocidal product family. Again, the details of all of this and the definitions are all there in the guidance in the BPR, but we're just reminding that this all is out there. So the data requirements, once the transitional measures are over and you have to apply for a full product authorization, you will need to put together a dossier. The data requirements for the dossier are laid out in the regulations that are supporting the biocidal products regulation, and this is what they are. I'm not going to go through them all, but as you can see, there's a lot of data that will need to be generated in the various sections of the dossier, everything from PhysChem, analytical, and so on. So there's a lot of expense and a lot of work that needs to be done. You also need to consider that you will have to make sure you have technical equivalence. So the active substance that you are using in your biocidal product has to show technical equivalence to the reference source that was evaluated at EU level. They need to have a similar chemical composition and hazard profile. You will need to submit a technical equivalence application to ECHA, and it's the active substance manufacturer or the supplier or the formulator. Those are all different parties that can apply for technical equivalence of the active substance material they're using. Article 95 is not automatically linked to technical equivalence, so just be careful. They are two completely different procedures. You need both, okay? And they are done for different purposes. Technical equivalence is to show that you have an equivalent material that has the same hazard profile, and we will talk about Article 95 in a couple of slides. Technical equivalence is done or evaluated at Tier 1 or Tier 2. Tier 1 is where there's a comparison of the composition, and that's the analytical data. ECHA carries out this evaluation. And then if it's not found to be equivalent or there's additional impurities that are in your source, then a Tier 2 evaluation will be used to assess whether that is going to influence the hazard profile from a toxicological or ecotoxicological point of view. Data protection, again, something to consider. So these are the rules for the data protection. I'm not going to go through them all, but they're there on the slide for you. The reason I put this slide in is to point out either what could be an opportunity for some, an advantage for some, and a disadvantage for others, depending on what angle you are looking at it from, on whether you are a data owner or whether you are a generic coming in. If the active substance product type is not already approved before the 1st of September 2013, then all the data protection periods for the active substance product types that are still under review will remain only until the 31st of December 2025. So that means that all of those substances that are under transitional measures, our understanding is that their data protection is going to run out on the 31st of December 2025, and you will be able to use that data that has now come out of data protection. And this is where we talk about Article 95, because the whole purpose of Article 95 is to stop free riders, to make sure that people pay and compensate for the data that they're using if it is data protected. So Article 95 list is the list of relevant active substances and their respective substance and product suppliers, and it's published by ECHA. The idea was that they wanted to ensure equal treatment of the persons that are placing the active substance on the market. A biocidal product can't be made available on the market unless either the substance supplier or the product supplier have been included on the Article 95 list, and it's also PT specific, so it's for that relevant product type. The active substance must be sourced ultimately from companies on the list, and this is to make sure that you're buying from companies that have either paid have paid for access to the data that was used to evaluate the active substance at EU level, or have produced an equivalent, comparable dossier, and have the data to support their active substance. So, timeline for your biocidal product dossier preparation. We always traditionally say at T-2 years, so 2 years before the authorization date or the approval date of the active substance, you need to be starting to prepare your dossier. I would say even go a little bit further back, because you need to, at 2 years, or let's say at 2.5 years really, you need to decide which products you're supporting. You need to book your member state competent authority that's going to carry out the evaluation, because they are getting overloaded, and they will be super overloaded now in the next 6 years with everybody rushing to get their product applications done in order to keep their products on the market. You need to conduct a data gap analysis, start your shelf life testing, because that can take 2 years of actual testing. So it's really 2.5 years until you get your final report. Consider consortium formation and possible buy-side or product family strategy, and make sure you've got your Article 95 and your technical equivalence sorted as well. A year before application, you need to get access to your active substance data, either by a letter of access or other. Discuss the approach with your member state competent authority that's going to be evaluating your product. Carry out your preliminary risk assessment. Start efficacy and phys-chem studies other than your shelf life, of course, and begin creating your draft PAR and your IUCLID file and your SPC, so the various components that you're going to be submitting for your product authorization dossier. At T-6 months, if you're using union authorization, then that is the deadline for your ECHA pre-submission. And then at T-1 month, you submit your actual dossier if it's a normal product authorization dossier. And T, of course, is your approval date and the deadline, the final deadline for submitting your buy-side product dossier. But you should have submitted it, like we said, about a month before then, just to be safe. Remember that for the UK, even though the procedures and the deadlines might be similar to the EU, you need to make sure that you're following the HSE guidelines when you're applying in GB. Remember, for the UK, which is GB in Northern Ireland, and that's why I've included those links there for you. And my final 2 slides are just a quick list of upcoming deadlines in 2024. So for active substance product types that are still not approved, you need to check your BPC meetings on the ECHA webpage. And for active substance product types that are approved, you need to check the ECHA website as well. So you can see here are the deadlines, that basically the ones and their approval dates that are coming up in 2024. And then those are the approval dates that are coming up in 2025. So the take-home message is, watch your active substance very, very carefully. Make sure that you get everything you need done. Article 95, technical equivalence, studies for your BPR. Get in there with transitional measures right now, so that you can actually have your product on the market while your dossier is being evaluated. Okay, so this is just a reminder of our publications that you on our website, and these are the upcoming webinars that are coming up during the rest of this year, and then in 2025 we'll be running our biocides webinar series again. And just a quick save the date for our various symposiums. We have our Dublin Fertilizer Symposium coming up next in September, and then in November the plant protection products, and finally in March 2025 we have the date for our next Dublin Biocides Symposium. I'm just going to have a very quick look, because I do see one question. Okay, so the question is, are we saying that no new active substance will be introduced to the Article 95 list anymore? So no, you still need to include your active substances on your Article 95 list. That's not the case. We are still including active substances on the Article 95 list. You still need to, no, please don't apologize. We still need to include them on the Article 95 list, because it is related to data protection. Okay, so I hope that that was a helpful and useful webinar. I hope that you enjoyed it. If anybody has any further questions, because I know we've already run over the time, so I'm going to have to close. If anybody has any more questions, please go ahead and send them to me by email. and I will answer you via email. So my email address is included there. Please feel free to send me any questions that you have. So for now, I wish you a lovely rest of the day. Have a lovely day and lovely rest of the week. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for joining me. Take care and goodbye.